The night unspools over the Nevada desert like a spool of dark silk. Sodium lights hum. The wind combs the sagebrush until it sounds like a whispering crowd. On Highway 93, where miles look identical and time grows elastic, a roadside motel glows in failing neon, Silver Moon Inn. The sign blinks in a broken rhythm, as if the place has a slow heartbeat. A woman moves inside, steady as a metronome. She strips beds, wipes headboards, empties ashtrays even when no one has smoked. The name on her plastic badge reads Nora. In rooms where past guests left nothing but the shape of their weight on mattresses, Nora tidies absence. She is quick with her hands and cautious with her eyes. A person who learned to hold small things gently because life took the large ones without asking. Far away, cloud tops bruise purple and roll east. The storm will break soon. A black car, polished and expensive, slides through the dark like a sleek animal and veers into the gravel lot. The desert listens. Fate arrives quietly, like a car coasting to a stop. Nora Bennett is 32, with a face whose softness survives long hours and cheap soap. She lives in a single room at the back of the property. A rectangle of space furnished with a narrow bed, a dented mini-fridge, and a corkboard where a handful of photographs are pinned with rusted tacks. The pictures came from disposable cameras, sun-streaked lakes, a carnival at dusk, a girl with the same eyes as Nora, standing by an old rail bridge and smiling like the future could finally see her. The girl's name was Lena. Nora's routine keeps her stitched together. She wakes before the heat, ties her hair with the same faded ribbon, brews coffee in a machine that coughs, and crosses the asphalt with her head down, carrying a caddy of supplies like a soldier with quiet orders. She drinks water warm as the air and counts wages in her head. She duck walks under the whine of the motel's ice machine and thinks about film grain, shutter speed, and angles she would capture if she owned a real camera. She is careful not to imagine too much. Imagination has teeth when you are poor. On the corkboard there is also a letter that was never sent. Folded and unfolded a dozen times, it retains the muscle memory of sorrow. Nora sometimes places her palm over it. She doesn't read it. Reading hurts more than remembering. The storm breaks above the highway with a suddenness that scares the air into silence. Rain arrives hard and immediate, turning dust to dark paste. The black car noses into the lot like a ship seeking harbor. When the driver door opens, the man who climbs out brings with him the smell of rain on leather. He is in his late 30s, with an expression like polished glass. Flawless from a distance, fractured from up close. He moves like someone accustomed to being noticed, and presently relieved not to be. Inside the office, the power flickers, steadies, then dies. The Silver Moon Inn exhales into candlelight. Nora knows where the matches are, where the emergency lantern hibernates, where the ledger lives beneath the counter for when the card machine refuses to breathe. The man asks for a room. His voice has New York in it, the clipped confidence of a city that has no time. He lays a black card on the counter, but plastic is useless in a blackout. Nora registers him by hand in the paper ledger, the way old places remember names. He signs as Julian Crane. The pen stutters slightly in his grip, a tremor he hides so well it looks like the candle made it. He asks if there is somewhere to wait until the rain loosens its fist. Nora indicates the lobby's cracked leather sofa and brings a lantern that turns the room amber. Outside, thunder walks the desert on heavy feet. The ice machine coughs once, then gives up. The storm pins them to this place. 2 lives tethered for a single night by weather, and a broken alternator. The motel becomes a floating world of small sounds. Wind needling the seams of windows, rain drilling the metal stair railings, the soft tap of Nora's shoes on linoleum. She works through rooms with the patience of someone who understands that healing is a task done with rags and quiet. Julian watches. He pretends to read a tourist brochure that promises ghost towns, hot springs, and rocket debris along the highway. He is not seeing the brochure. He is seeing the outline his life has made around a loss he never learned to enter. Nora returns to the office to check the circuit panel. The lantern paints her face in warm planes. She senses the man's attention the way one senses weather changing. by the shift in pressure. He asks if the storm is common. She answers without looking at him, that in this desert even the sky has moods. Time lengthens. The lobby grows intimate, like a confession booth without the priest. Julian's suit looks wrong here, but grief always looks wrong no matter the room. He asks about nearby food. Nora points to a diner a mile down the road and adds that the owner closes when the rain slants horizontal. He asks if the motel has vending machines. She offers leftover sandwiches from the front desk mini-fridge and returns with 2 in paper triangles. He accepts without protest, as though penance has a taste, and it's always a little stale. He eats quietly. The lantern reveals a thin scar near his jaw and the habit of holding breath between sentences. When he finally speaks of New York, the story leaks out like water from a hairline crack. He describes a life of glass towers, elevators that rise without effort, and meetings where numbers move like weather maps across screens. He mentions a woman whose laugh he can still hear in empty rooms. He doesn't say her name at first, the way sailors don't say the name of the sea at night. Nora senses the contour of his pain and tries to guide the conversation toward neutral ground. But fate, once awake, has little interest in neutral ground. Julian's voice dips. He speaks of a night that broke his life into before and after. Rain, an argument that started small and sharpened. Headlights smeared by water, a sudden skid, a guardrail, a silence that was not silence because the heart screams when it understands. He says the police called it an accident. He calls it the longest sentence while still breathing. Nora stands very still. Thunder moves farther away, as if giving them privacy. She asks carefully the woman's name. Julian says it. The sound scrapes the air. Lena Bennett. The room does not move. Nora does not move. The lantern flame flutters once and steadies. The name lands in her chest like a stone dropped into deep water. Her throat tightens. Her fingers find the edge of the counter as if the body remembers to hold on when the mind goes loose. She tells him, after a long silence, that Lena was her sister. There is no lightning at that exact moment, no cymbal crash, only the subtle physics of a soul receiving more weight than it can ruin or refuse. Julian's face empties under the lantern's honey light. He tries to speak and fails. The desert hushes to eavesdrop. Nora breathes. She tells the story as if reading an affidavit to herself. 2 sisters bounding through summers by a lake. The plan to leave their small town stacked like coins in a jar. First month's rent, a second-hand camera, bus fare. Then city lights. Then the job that pays in minutes, not hours. Then a call that knifes dawn open. She remembers the sterile room where officials speak in careful voices. She remembers signing forms and not remembering the pen. She remembers a photograph of the damaged car and the space where the passenger seat should have held a life. Julian closes his eyes. He looks as if he is waiting for a verdict that has been sealed for years. He whispers into his hands without moving his lips. The words are apology, but apology has never brought back a single person. The storm thins. A few raindrops drill a final pattern into the dust. Somewhere down the highway, a truck shifts gears, the sound like a groan in the earth's hinge. Nora steps away from the counter as if distance could help her breathe. She does not tell him to leave. She does not ask for money or vengeance or the past. She sits on the far edge of the lumpy sofa. Julian takes the chair opposite and lowers his gaze in a gesture that admits that the room is hers to command. Time becomes a third presence, tall and quiet. In that dim lobby, they share what can be shared without words. The strange way grief stains everything the same color. The knowledge that guilt is a wheel that never stops spinning unless someone touches it with mercy. The night stretches wide enough to hold flashbacks. In Nora's memory, Lena is 17, slipping through a curtain of willow branches to the lake's shallow edge. Light frets across the water. Nora's disposable camera clicks, each frame a promise. They practice smiles they might use when opportunity asks for proof. At a county fair, they ride the Ferris wheel and pretend the creaking metal is the sound of a city elevator. Later, in a rented room above a bodega, they live lean on cheap eggs and instant noodles, while the city inside the TV feels like a science fiction planet next door. Julian's memory moves differently, expensive and brittle. A penthouse that smells like eucalyptus towels. Boardroom tables long enough to land a small plane. A watch that costs more than a teacher's yearly wages. He remembers the first time he saw Lena across a gallery floor. A collage exhibition the size of a warehouse. A paper universe stitched with copper wire and longing. Lena turned and laughed at something, one hand tucked behind her ear. Noticing her felt like moving from grayscale into color too quickly. They collided, as people do when fate loosens the laces on their separate shoes. He remembers her sharp honesty, how she refused to be impressed by money. She asked better questions. What are you good for besides making things grow that don't need more growing? Do you remember the version of yourself you lost at 13? When did you last apologize without adding a clause? He remembers the night of the accident with a clarity that makes him nauseous. Rain that blurred lanes. A disagreement swollen by 3 misunderstandings and 1 old wound. The moment the car hydroplaned into a slick curve. The guardrail's cold decision. The sickening silence afterward, followed by sound, followed by the awareness that death does not always announce itself with theatrics. It can be immediate and indecently quiet. Nora remembers the burial 2 counties away from the life Lena had built. She remembers the way small towns are best at casseroles and worst at questions. She remembers closing Lena's storage unit alone and lifting boxes that contained pieces of a life that had barely started to arrange itself into a shape. Inside one box, she found contact sheets, photographs of lakes and girls on bridges and city streets slick with rain. She took what she could and sold what she had to so she could ship the rest. Some of it never arrived. Grief is a thief's best friend. After midnight, a pickup truck pulls under the covered driveway, shedding water. A local named Bill, a regular, stomps in with a baseball cap dripping and asks if the sky intends to empty the Pacific over Nevada. He is a friend of no one in particular and everyone a little. Nora hands him a towel. Bill lodges in room 3 every second week when long-haul routes pinwheel him past the silver moon. He notices Julian's shoes first, then his watch, then something quiet around his mouth. He nods at the stranger and says the road will be better by morning. On the counter sits a vase that once held plastic flowers. Nora removed them because even imitation beauty needs dusting. And dusting things that pretend to be alive felt like a performance she couldn't afford. Bill mentions that the radio says the highway north washed out near a dry creek that forgot what dry means. He says the local diner's still closed. The owner lost power and patience. A detective arrives right before 2 a.m., not for drama but for coffee. Detective Morales is the kind of cop who knows that most crime in a place like this is fatigue wearing a mask. She asks if Nora has seen a black sedan stuck by the culvert. A tow request came through, then vanished when the storm ate the signal. Nora points at the luxury car outside. Morales raises an eyebrow that says the desert still surprises her. She notes the plates, says she'll log it so the troopers don't flag the vehicle abandoned, and leaves with a courteous nod that seems to contain advice about getting sleep. Julian watches the ordinary choreography of this small life with the kind of reverence people usually reserve for cathedrals. He is safe here, not from the law but from his own reputation. In New York, his last name opens doors and closes mouths. Here, a towel and a nod are the currency. The power crawls back around 3:30, lights stuttering to life. The soda machine coughs itself awake. Air conditioning throws a tired sigh into the hall. With the storm in retreat, the motel returns to its habit of pretending it is eternal. Nora steps outside. The air smells like wet dust and the far-off metallic bite of lightning. Desert stars reappear between clouds like survivors counting themselves. She stands under the awning and lets the cool blow over her face. Inside, Julian remains in the lobby, elbows on knees, head in hands. He does not cry. Some people never learned how without an audience. Nora returns and sits again, leaving a respectful space between their griefs. She tells him carefully that she didn't come to the city for answers after Lena died because poor people's questions are not considered emergencies. She says there were days she wanted to hate someone. On those days she hated the weather, which did not apologize. She tells him she kept working, kept breathing, kept counting tips and measuring days with sheets and towels. There is strength in inventory. Julian says he disappeared from his life without actually vanishing. He left his phone on a marble counter, walked out while an elevator filled with suits argued about a fund, and kept walking. He bought a car because trains felt too civilized for the kind of exile he sought. He did not aim for Nevada but found himself here, as if a map unfolded itself and pointed to a red X at the edge of this motel's sign. Between them, the lantern's small flame gutters out because the power is back and no one needs it. Their faces are less beautiful under fluorescent light, but truth is indifferent to lighting design. They do not agree to anything. They do not forgive or accuse further. They simply share the room until dawn assumes the sky again. Sunlight is pale at first, then generous. Birds resume errands. The Silver Moon Inn looks less like a secret and more like a structure with bills to pay. Nora unlocks the office safe to place the ledger inside. She notices an envelope she does not remember placing there. It carries her name in handwriting that has argued lately with sleep. Inside she finds a letter, a standard train ticket to New York, and a key with a tag that lists an address in the city. The letter is not a plea and not a purchase. It contains neither apology as currency nor money as balm. It lays out, in a handful of paragraphs, a set of coordinates where the past can be met without guards. It explains that in a storage unit in Brooklyn there is a collection labeled with a careful blue marker, Unseen Light. It states that the collection belongs to Lena Bennett and, by blood and love, to Nora. It offers to cover the cost of one exhibition at a small gallery, already reserved under a name that does not include Julian's. The letter insists that the show be anonymous if Nora prefers it that way. It closes with a line that reads like a hand extended across a chasm. Sometimes destiny does not punish. Sometimes it offers a second chance, but only to those who agree to step onto the bridge. Nora sits with the ticket against her palm like a hot stone. She thinks of the corkboard above her bed and the way dust settles on memories that do not move. She thinks of Lena's defiant smile in the carnival's blue light, of their Laketown vow to leave and become people who can be seen. She thinks of the man who has slept very little in a rich life, and the boy he must have hidden to survive it. She does not run after Julian. She does not call his name across a parking lot. When she steps outside, the black car is still there, but the driver's seat is empty. On the hood, dew beads like a constellation. The highway hums in the near distance. Destiny does not like curtain calls. Back in her room, Nora packs with the calm of a person who has rehearsed leaving for years. She slides the letter into the same folder as the never sent one, and adds 2 folded photographs, a toothbrush, and a sweater that can survive New York wind. She pauses, looks at the corkboard, and then removes every pin. She leaves the holes in the cork to mark what was. 2 days later, Nora watches desert beige turn to plains, then to cityscape through a train window. The rails make a heartbeat under the carriage. Across from her, a child sleeps with headphones crooked around a small ear. Somewhere behind them, a conductor makes a joke on the intercom that only half the car hears. Nora feels the forward pull as something other than physics. She thinks of Lena in galleries with cracked plaster, of laughter in rooms where no one knows where you were born. New York is a winter animal when she arrives, cold-breathed and impatient. She steps onto a platform where steam rises from something unseen, and feels the city lean close to examine her. She follows the letter's instructions across a grid of streets to a storage facility painted a resigned gray. The manager looks up her name and passes her a clipboard, then trundles open a metal door. The unit smells like cardboard, dust, and the sweetness of old paper. Inside, boxes line themselves like an audience, each labeled Unseen Light. LB, a folding table, holds a small index catalog, typed and annotated in a tidy hand that is not Lena's. It is Julian's hand disciplined into service. The catalog lists negatives, prints, contact sheets, notes, and venue ideas scouted and then crossed out. He has curated her sister's life as if preserving a rare species. Nora opens the first box with careful fingers. Black and white prints whisper against each other. A portrait of Lena on the rail bridge, wind flaring the hem of her dress like a flag belonging to no country. A series of laundromats and their quiet drama. Night photographs where the city's wet streets look like the inside of an eye. Nora stands until her legs ask for mercy, and then sits on a box because chairs are for other lives. She hears a memory that doesn't exist. The soft sound of Lena's voice describing the way light behaves on faces that are not expecting kindness. She begins to sort. She chooses a sequence that feels like breath. Entry, complication, rupture, grace. She thinks about captions and decides that some images do not need words. They need witnesses. The gallery is small, all white bones and street noise. The owner hangs prints with reverence and tape. They agree on no program notes beyond a dedication to the unseen work of a life interrupted. The night of the opening, snow sifts from a quiet sky. A crowd that knows how to look gathers. Artists place their chins in their hands, the posture of attention. A woman in a green coat weeps without making noise. A man with paint in his hair studies a photo of a lake and looks like he has never seen water before. Nora moves through the room slowly. She does not name herself. Her name is here anyway, in the angles of images that saw her before she knew how to see herself. The last photograph hangs alone, a half-reflection of Lena in a window late at night, her outline layered with the street behind her. It is the kind of image that feels like a door cracked open between worlds. If the show is a prayer, this is the Amen. At the far end of the room, near the exit, stands a man in a dark coat. He is not the center of attention. He is very good at not being seen. He watches the crowd's faces the way a drowning person watches the surface of a lake for signs of rescue. When Nora drifts near, he takes a half step back, as if distance is dignity. It is Julian, thinner than before, the kind of tired that comes from choosing to feel. He does not approach her. He does not need to. He studies the photograph of Lena's reflection until his hands stop shaking. Then he leaves a slim book on the gallery's guest table. A ledger of expenses paid, accounts closed, ownership assigned to Nora Bennett in perpetuity. He places a small brass key inside the book, the key to the storage unit. No note. To write would make him the subject again. Nora sees the book later and understands the gesture. She steps to the gallery's door and looks out into the street, hoping for a glimpse of a dark coat moving into the quilt of city motion. She sees only ordinary strangers and a taxi shedding slush at the curb. She stands very still for a moment that contains everything they failed to say, and everything they gave each other anyway. She does not run. She does not chase. Fate often prefers restraint to spectacle. In the weeks that follow, the show gathers the kind of attention that moves quietly but deeply. A review in a small arts journal describes the work as proof that light can forgive what time has broken. A community college invites Nora to speak about the archive, about the invisible labor behind photographs that appear effortless. She brings the folding catalog and sets it on the podium like an altar. She speaks of Lena's curiosity and of cities that do not apologize for their appetite. She speaks of the motel at the edge of the desert where the future turned its head and saw her. At night, she rides the subway and studies faces. She keeps a cheap camera in her bag and begins to shoot again, careful and generous. She sends a print to the Silver Moon Inn with a note to Bill and Detective Morales, thanking them for the kind things they gave without thinking. A towel, a glance, a promise to log a plate number. On her dresser in a borrowed room, the train ticket lies beside a subway card, proof that movement can take many shapes. Sometimes, when winter is thinning, she walks past a certain gallery window after closing. Across the street, in a doorway deep with shadow, a motion might suggest a man with the stance of someone who has learned to listen. She never crosses to look. She keeps the possibility folded carefully, like a letter that could still be read. In a world that worships speed and spectacle, destiny often operates on smaller frequencies. A storm pauses a car by a motel whose sign forgets a syllable. A woman with hands roughened by bleach steadies a lantern. A man who once believed money could outshout regret finds a chair and sits. The universe is not always kind, but sometimes it arranges two broken lines until they meet like threads. Nora learns that poverty is not lack of character but lack of options, and that art can be a form of shelter when no other roof holds. Julian learns that repentance is not a sentence to be served alone, but a bridge that can be walked only if someone on the other side is willing to stand still long enough to see you coming. They do not erase what happened. They do not dress grief in fantasies. They live with it like a weather system that sometimes clears and sometimes demands candles. If this story found you in a quiet hour, let it travel. Share it with someone who keeps a ticket they have not used, a letter they have not sent, a door they have not opened. Like and subscribe, so more people stumble into the rooms where second chances wait under ordinary light. Sometimes destiny does not shout. Sometimes it knocks once on a motel lobby window in the middle of the night and hopes someone is awake.